Good morning, Rufus. Um, I'm here because I found out about ClickBank through Black Hustlers Club, and I am here to read the terms and conditions to you. The terms and conditions for the Black Hustler Club is as goes. The ClickBank client contract. The agreement constitutes a legally binding agreement between Click Sales Inc., a Delaware corporation, ClickBank, and you, or your. By checking the box stating that you have read and agreed to the terms and conditions of this agreement as part of your registration with ClickBank, you agree and consent to be bound by the terms and conditions of this agreement, including any changes to this agreement or additional policies incorporated by reference, which ClickBank may make in its sole discretion in the future for as long as you use the ClickBank services. Subject to the terms and conditions of this agreement, ClickBank hereby grants to you a non exclusive, revocable right and license without right to sublicense to use ClickBank's proprietary online platform, including without limitation to the website located at https double colon forward slash www.clickbank.com. Any services offered on or through such website and any service, computers, or networks used to provide such website, the ClickBank services, for the purposes set forth in this agreement. In the event you transfer your account or ownership of any product as defined below, you shall ensure that any purchasers or assignees are bound by the terms of this agreement. In addition to any other rights or remedies afforded ClickBank under or otherwise in connection with this agreement, you agree and acknowledge that you have read and agreed to comply with the following policies, which are hereby incorporated by reference into and made part of this agreement. The Vendor and Products Requirements Policy, this is a link. Digital Millennium Copyright Act, DMCA, and Trademark Policy, this is a link. Return and Cancellation Policy, this is a link. Accounting Policy, this is a link. Privacy Policy, this is a link. Security Policy, this is a link. Network Abuse Policy, this is a link. Legal Notice, this is a link. Joint Venture Program Guidelines, this is a link. 2. Registration. You will be required to register for an account in order to use certain ClickBank services. When you provide information during the registration process, you agree to provide only true, accurate, current, and complete information and to update it as necessary to maintain its truth and accuracy. A. If you register for a ClickBank account, you have to agree to accept responsibility for all activities that occur under your account or password, if any, and you agree you will not sell, transfer, or assign your subscription or any subscriber rights. You are responsible for maintaining the confidentiality of your password, if any, and for restricting access to your computer or other internet access device as applicable so that others may not access the password protected portion of the ClickBank services using your account information in whole or in part. ClickBank reserves the right to terminate your account or otherwise deny you access in its sole discretion without notice and without liability. 3. Promoting products. If you promote, market, or otherwise advertise, promote, or promotion any product which is registered for sale via the ClickBank services, either by you or by another ClickBank client, each a product, whether via the ClickBank services or via any other online or offline channel or medium, including for the purpose of earning a percentage of the sale price of any product sold as a result of such promotion, aka commissions. You agree, you acknowledge, you represent, and you warrant that you will abide by ClickBank's return and cancellation policy, a link. and you will establish your vendor return policy as set forth below. A. When you promote a product, you will use the applicable vendor's trademarks, logos, trade names, or service marks in accordance with such vendor's trademark guidelines, which will either be supplied by ClickBank or set forth in the vendor promotional messaging guidelines, if applicable. For purposes of this agreement, vendor is defined as any person or entity that submits one or more products for sale via the ClickBank marketplace. B. You will not make any unlicensed or unauthorized use of or otherwise infringe, violate, or misappropriate any patent, copyright, trademark, trade secret, right of privacy, right of publicity, or other intellectual property or other proprietary right, collectively IP rights, of any entity or individual. C. You will not interfere with or manipulate rankings of ClickBank's marketplace, as defined below in Section 4D, tracking of commissions, or the normal flow of traffic to, through, or from the ClickBank services. D. If you promote products or brands in a high-risk industry, you must be in compliance with ClickBank's additional terms and conditions provided to you, which are incorporated into this agreement by this reference at all times. E. You will not promote violence, sexually explicit materials, products from any website, blog, social network, forum, or other medium that contain, host, or promote illegal content or material, illegal activities, alcohol, tobacco, or prescription drugs, discrimination based upon race, sex, religion, nationality, disability, sexual orientation, or age. F. You will not promote any products or services to children under the age of 13. G. You will not defame any person. H. You will not include any trademarks or other brand identifiers or any copyrighted materials other than as expressly permitted by this agreement. I. You will not incorporate any variation of or misspell any third-party trademarks or other brand identifiers in any domain name, username, or other identifier, including on any social networking site. J. You will not in any way copy the look and feel of any third-party website or otherwise imply that the promotion is in fact a third-party website. K. All communications and or representations made by you in connection with any promotions and or in relation to any product will be accurate and contain all disclosures and disclaimers necessary to prevent such promotions from being false or deceptive. Such disclosures and disclaimers must be made in a clear and conspicuous manner and will otherwise comply with your country laws and all U.S. federal and state laws, including U.S. Federal Trade Commission, FTC, link, regulations, policies, and guidelines governing advertising disclosure and consumer protection, including the FTC's endorsement guidelines. Link. ClickBank reserves the right, but is not obligated to review your promotions. You agree that ClickBank, in its sole discretion and at any time, may require changes to product promotion and delivery pages, customer support, or other items related to the content of your promotions. M. You will provide valid contact information, including but not limited to a working email address and phone number where ClickBank can send inquiries and receive a non-automated reply by end of the following business day. N. ClickBank does not independently review, verify, guarantee, or assume any responsibility or liability for the accuracy, completeness, efficacy, or timeliness of any information provided by vendors, nor is it responsible for any bonuses, prizes, or other incentives offered by vendors in the vendor spotlight as described in this agreement or otherwise offered by vendors via the ClickBank services. Your use of any information presented by a vendor is voluntary and your reliance is at your sole risk. You acknowledge and understand that ClickBank does not verify statements, claims, incentives, or promotions made by vendors in the vendor spotlight or otherwise made by vendors via the ClickBank services. Oh, you will comply with all applicable laws, rules, and regulations. 4. Selling products. If you register any products for sale via the ClickBank services, you agree, acknowledge, represent, and warrant that all products you register for sale via the ClickBank services must be approved by ClickBank prior to you being able to sell the products through the ClickBank services. In certain circumstances, ClickBank may require you to modify your products prior to being approved or prohibit your products from being sold via the ClickBank services and ClickBank's sole discretion. ClickBank's approval or modification of your product is not an endorsement of your product or of any modification, and ClickBank is not liable for any modification. A. All products you register for sale via the ClickBank services and the offering and sale thereof via the ClickBank services comply with all of your country's laws, all laws of any country to which your product may be shipped, and all applicable U.S. federal and state laws and regulations. B. Your products do not involve downloading software on the computer of a person or entity purchasing a product, the purchaser, unless a purchase is completed or you provide the purchaser a clear and conspicuous disclosure describing all of the software being downloaded, its functionality, and you obtain express consent prior to any such downloads. C. Without further conditions or limitations, you authorize ClickBank to list any product you register for sale via the ClickBank services in the online searchable marketplace of products made available via the ClickBank services, the ClickBank marketplace, and make it available for sale to purchasers and or for the persons and or entities that promote the products made available via the ClickBank marketplace. Affiliates at the price designed by ClickBank, retail price, after taking into consideration your suggestions regarding such retail price, including any applicable sale tax. D. You will provide valid email addresses to which purchasers or ClickBank can send inquiries and receive a reply by end of the following business day. Purchasers and ClickBank must also be able to receive a non-automated response within 1 business day when necessary. E. You notify ClickBank of any regulatory or legal complaints or threats of such complaints that you receive in connection with or in relation to a product within 2 business days of your receipt of such complaint. You shall assist ClickBank at your sole cost and expense in taking any necessary or appropriate actions reasonably requested by ClickBank to respond to and or resolve such complaints. F. ClickBank will collect and remit state or local transfer taxes for any retail transaction, including but not limited to sales or use tax, where it believes it is legally required to do so. Where ClickBank does not collect and remit state or local transfer taxes on a transaction, you may have the legal obligation to pay such taxes. Such obligation may arise as a result of your existing or past physical contacts with a state, including but not limited to your provision of a drop ship delivery of the physical product to a buyer located in a state. You may wish to consult a tax professional to determine if you will have this type of obligation in any particular state. You agree that if such an obligation arises with respect to any particular state, you will be solely responsible for the timely payment of such tax and any interest or penalties. G. If you use the Vendor Spotlight platform or the ClickBank services to communicate with affiliates about your products, you agree that all statements or messages communicated to you via the Vendor Spotlight or ClickBank services constitute promotions under this agreement and are subject to all applicable terms and conditions thereto. Additionally, and without limiting any other restriction contained herein, you will not use the Vendor Spotlight or ClickBank services to 1. or I. Make any false or deceptive statement or claim regarding your product or sales of your product. 2 I's. Offer any promotions or incentives to affiliates unless you intend to fulfill such promotions or incentives. 3I. Offer any promotions or incentives to affiliates unless you affirmatively state that they are offered only by you and not by ClickBank. Or 4I's. Suggest in any way, whether express or implied, that your products are endorsed, approved, or sponsored by ClickBank in any way. ClickBank reserves the right to suspend your ability to use the Vendor Spotlight or ClickBank services at any time. H. If and to the extent you use third parties to provide products or services, you and such third parties must be in compliance with all terms of this agreement, and you are responsible for all acts and omissions of such third party. I. All vendors must include the required disclaimers and comply with the requirements set forth here. Link https://support.clickbank.com/HC/AR articles /2201958/product/guidelines. No account may have more than 100 joint venture contracts. J. Accounts with more than 100 joint venture contracts are subject to review and potential corrective actions as determined in ClickBank's sole discretion. If in ClickBank's sole discretion you abuse the joint venture program, including for the purpose of avoiding the payment of negative balances, ClickBank may terminate your account, terminate your access to the joint venture program, or take any other corrective measures it deems appropriate. K. You will comply with all applicable laws, rules, and regulations. You will establish an appropriate return, replacement, and or cancellation policy for your products. Vendor return policy. Your vendor return policy must fall within the range of no refunds to allowing refunds or replacements up to 60 days after the date of purchase, i.e., a 30-day refund policy or a 45-day refund policy will each be acceptable if appropriate. If you believe that a vendor return policy longer than 60 days after the date of purchase is appropriate for your products, ClickBank will review such a request and in its sole discretion may allow an extended vendor return policy. You can only provide such an extended vendor return policy with ClickBank's written consent. You will ensure that the vendor return policy is clearly and conspicuously posted for your customers to review prior to purchasing your products. ClickBank reserves the right to alter or override your vendor return policy if you abuse ClickBank's flexible return and cancellation policy. If your vendor return policy is not appropriate for the products, if the return or chargeback sales defined in the accounting policy are excessive, or for any other reason ClickBank deems appropriate in its sole discretion. 5. Availability of services, suspension, termination. You agree and acknowledge that, subject to the terms and conditions of this agreement and ClickBank's policies and procedures, ClickBank shall use commercially reasonable efforts to provide the ClickBank services in a manner that will not disrupt your business. You acknowledge and agree that from time to time, the ClickBank services may be inaccessible or inoperable for reasons including, without limitation, I. Equipment malfunctions, 2I. Period maintenance procedures or repairs that ClickBank may undertake from time to time, or 3I. Causes beyond the reasonable control of ClickBank or that are reasonably unforeseeable by ClickBank, including, without limitation, interruption or failure of telecommunication or digital transmission links, hostile network attacks, network congestion, or other failures. You acknowledge and agree that ClickBank is not liable for any periodic interruptions in availability of the ClickBank services, and further acknowledge that ClickBank does not guarantee access to the ClickBank services on a continuous and uninterrupted basis. A. ClickBank may decline, delist, or halt sales or promotion of any product from the ClickBank marketplace, suspend funds, adjust commissions based on performance, close an account, and or suspend or terminate the ClickBank services at any time in its sole discretion without cause or notice to you or any penalty or liability for doing so. B. ClickBank in its sole discretion may suspend or terminate your account and or rights to use the ClickBank services, and ClickBank may retain any or all funds, including future funds that may accrue in your ClickBank account if I. ClickBank suspects or has reason to believe, and or if a person otherwise claims that you have violated the law or breached any terms of this agreement. 2I. Your account becomes dormant as defined in our accounting policy. 3I. Or your account experiences or is reasonably anticipated to experience a negative balance. Upon such termination, you agree to immediately cease all use of the ClickBank services and ClickBank intellectual property licensed in Section 8B of this agreement. Without limiting the foregoing, ClickBank shall have the right to immediately terminate your access and use of the ClickBank services or any portion thereof, and to seize funds in your account in the event of any conduct which ClickBank in its sole discretion considers to be unacceptable. C. Following suspension or termination of an account or retaining of funds pursuant to the Section 5, ClickBank will review your account in a manner determined by ClickBank in its sole discretion. You agree to cooperate with this review if asked. If the review concludes that there is a reasonable basis to believe misconduct has occurred, you agree that ClickBank may retain funds in your ClickBank account as liquidated damages and or for the benefit of ClickBank or third parties affected by the misconduct. You acknowledge and agree that such liquidated damages, A, are not a penalty, and B, are reasonable and not disproportionate to such presumed damages to ClickBank. D. ClickBank may withhold any portion of the funds in your ClickBank account if ClickBank, in its sole discretion, determines such action is necessary to secure payment for, performance of, and or assurances regarding any liabilities, obligations, or indebtedness you may have incurred with ClickBank or any other person. 6. Email, text messages, and telemarketing. If you send or cause to be sent any emails in connection with the direct or indirect promotion or sale of any product and or your use of the ClickBank services, then you agree, acknowledge, represent, and warrant that all such emails shall be in compliance with all applicable federal and state laws and regulations regarding the use of electronic messages, including, without limitation, the Controlling the Assaults of Non-Solicited Pornography and Marketing Act, the CAN-SPAM Act, and the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, COPPA. Information on these laws can be found at http://www.ftc.gov/spam/link and https://www.ftc.gov/tips/advice/business center/privacy and security /children %27S-privacy. A. You shall not directly or indirectly exploit documented or undocumented security holes on any client or server machine, or obtain email addresses via automated means, or send any email to any address which was obtained via automated means, or the use of spyware, viruses, or other means of bypassing system security or invading consumer privacy. B. You may not directly or indirectly send, initiate, or procure the sending of any text message or use or procure the use of any telemarketing activities to promote or sell products unless you have received prior written approval from ClickBank. If you receive such approval and you send or cause to be sent any text messages or use or procure telemarketing activities in connection with the direct or indirect promotion or sale of any product and or your use of the ClickBank services, then you represent and warrant that all such text messages or calls will be in full compliance with all applicable federal and state laws and regulations that apply to sending electronic messages and using telemarketing activities, including, without limitation, regulations issued by the FTC, the Federal Communications Commission, FCC, the CAN-SPAM Act, the Telephone Consumer Protection Act, TCPA, and state laws regarding anti-spam text messages and do not call registries. Information on these laws can be found at https://www.fcc.gov/sites/default/files/TCPA-rules.pdf. Link https:// www.fcc.gov/consumers/guides/ stop unwanted -robocalls - and text, and https://www.fcc.gov/tips/advice/security/children%27s/privacy. 7. API requirements. API requirements. Your use of ClickBank's application programming interface API is subject to the API terms of service available at https://support.clickbank.com/API/contract link. ClickBank's IP rights. Except as set forth in Section 8B below, you may not use ClickBank's name, trademarks, service marks, or any other IP right of ClickBank in any manner whatsoever to suggest association or affiliation with or endorsement by ClickBank without the express prior written consent of ClickBank, which ClickBank may withhold at its sole discretion. Promotional use of images or reproductions of payment checks issued by ClickBank without the express written consent of ClickBank is prohibited. A. Subject to the following terms and conditions. During the term of this agreement, ClickBank grants you a limited, revocable license to use ClickBank's name, I, as a watermark, internet search engine description, keyword, search term, or seeding element with any internet search engines or keyword triggered advertising programs. 2i. In meta tags or hidden text. 3i's as a subdomain or second or third level domain name identifier. 4i. To identify products, or 5i. In connection with promotions. I. ClickBank may revoke the foregoing license and or provide restrictions upon your use of ClickBank's name, including requiring the use of such disclaimers as ClickBank may provide in connection with your use of ClickBank's name at any time and for any reason in ClickBank's sole discretion. 2i. Failure to comply with any restrictions imposed by ClickBank upon your use of ClickBank's name, or failure by you to immediately cease all use of ClickBank's name if so instructed by ClickBank shall constitute 1. A breach of the limited license set forth in this section 8b, and 2. A breach of this agreement. In such case, ClickBank reserves the right to pursue any and all remedies available to it at law or in equity. 3i. You may not use or display ClickBank's name in any manner to disparage ClickBank or the ClickBank services. B. Notwithstanding the limited revocable license set forth in Section 8b above, as between the parties, ClickBank shall be and remain the sole owner of all right, title, and interest in and to the ClickBank services, including, without limitation, all IP rights therein and any other IP rights, materials, or other properties owned, licensed, or controlled by ClickBank, and you hereby assign to ClickBank all right, title, and interest you may be deemed to have therein. All rights not specifically granted to you under this agreement are expressly reserved by ClickBank. 9. Confidentiality and non-disclosure obligations. In connection with this agreement, ClickBank may disclose to you and or you may otherwise receive or have access to sensitive, confidential, and or proprietary information of ClickBank, collectively confidential information, including but not limited to a. the identities of other vendors or affiliates of ClickBank, collectively ClickBank clients. B. Physical and data security information. C. Technical data. D. ClickBank marketplace statistics and sales data. And or E. Know-how or business information relating to business processes, methods, or marketing strategies, except as required to perform your obligations under and in accordance with the terms of this agreement. You shall not disclose the confidential information to any person, or to use the confidential information, whether for your own benefit or the benefit of any other person, without the express prior written consent of ClickBank. You may not use any confidential information for the purpose of soliciting or to permit others to solicit ClickBank clients to subscribe to any other services or promote the sale of any products which compete either directly or indirectly with ClickBank or the ClickBank services, including, without limitation, the functionality offered by the ClickBank marketplace. You agree and acknowledge that ClickBank may be required to provide to governmental agencies or other third parties information in its possession regarding you or the business you conduct with ClickBank. A. ClickBank does not invite and cannot accept any ideas or information you consider to be confidential and or proprietary, except with respect to your personally identifiable information as expressly provided for in the ClickBank privacy policy link. Any suggestions, submissions, comments, ideas, concepts, know-how, techniques, material, or feedback conveyed, offered, or transmitted by you to ClickBank or otherwise in connection with the ClickBank services, collectively, the submissions shall be deemed to be non-confidential and non-proprietary, and ClickBank shall have no obligation of any kind with respect to such submissions unless otherwise expressly agreed to in a writing executed by you and a duly authorized officer of ClickBank. You hereby grant to ClickBank and its licensees a worldwide, perpetual, non-exclusive, fully paid, royalty-free, transferable right and license with right to sublicense to reproduce, publicly display, distribute, perform, transmit, edit, modify, create derivatives, works of, publish, sell, commercially exploit, use, and disclose the submissions for any purpose and in all forms and all media, whether now known or to become known in the future. ClickBank shall have no obligation to compensate you for any such submissions in any manner. You hereby represent and warrant that A. You own or otherwise have the right to grant the foregoing license to ClickBank with respect to your submissions, and B, your submissions and any use thereof by ClickBank will not infringe or violate the rights of any person. You are and shall remain solely responsible for the content of any submissions you make, and acknowledge that ClickBank is under no obligation to respond to or use any submission you may provide. 10. Export control. You acknowledge and agree to comply with all applicable export laws, including the U.S. Export Administration Act, the Arms Export Control Act, the International Economic Emergency Powers Act, and the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, and regulations issued pursuant to these and other U.S. laws. You hereby represent and warn that any product promoted, offered, and or provided by you via the ClickBank services is approved for export from the United States without additional authorization or licensing from the U.S. government. Should the export authorization status of your products change, you must immediately notify ClickBank in writing. Information on U.S. export control regulations can be found on the Commerce Department website at the http colon / www.bis.doc.gov link. The State Department's website at http colon / www.treas.gov /offices /enforcement /OFAC index.html link. 11. Required permits. It is your sole responsibility to obtain and maintain all applicable license and permits required for the operation of your business. 12. Representations and warranties. You represent, acknowledge, and warrant that you, your products, your promotions, and or your submissions as applicable do not and will not directly or indirectly violate the right of privacy or publicity of any person, contain any libelous, obscene, indecent, or otherwise unlawful material. 4 eyes. 3 eyes. Infringe any IP rights in any jurisdiction or otherwise contravene any rights of any person. 4 eyes. Violate any laws, FTC rules, regulations, guidelines, or industry standards. Or 5 eye. Violate ClickBank's privacy policy. A. You may not I. Frame, copy, or mirror any content forming part of the ClickBank services. 2I. Reverse engineer the ClickBank services or otherwise attempt to derive its source materials. 3I. Access the ClickBank services for the purpose of A. Building a competitive product or service, or B. Copy any features, functions, or graphics of the ClickBank services. 4. Interfere with or disrupt the ClickBank services or any data contained therein. 5. Any attempt to gain unauthorized access to the ClickBank services, its related systems or networks. Or 6. Use the ClickBank services for any unlawful purpose or in violation of the rights of any person. 13. Indemnification. To the fullest extent permitted by law, you agree that in the event a third party makes any demand or complaint or commences any action or files any claim whatsoever, claim, in connection with your use of the ClickBank services, your products, your promotions, or use of the vendor spotlight, you shall defend, indemnify, and hold harmless ClickBank, its related parties and affiliates, and its officers, directors, employees, representatives, agents, licensors, attorneys, heirs, successors, and assignees, the ClickBank parties, from and against any and all damages, liabilities, claims, or costs, including the cost of investigation, defense, reasonable attorney fees and costs, losses, incurred by any ClickBank party as a result of such claim, regardless of whether such losses are direct, incidental, consequential, punitive, or statutory. A. Upon receiving notice of a claim for which ClickBank is entitled to indemnification by you, ClickBank shall provide you with written notification and the opportunity to assume sole control over the defense or settlement of the claim and reasonable assistance to settle and or defend the claim at your sole expense. Provided, however, that any settlement which would impose a non-monetary obligation on and or admission or finding of liability or wrongdoing by ClickBank will require ClickBank's prior written consent. 2I. The failure to provide timely notice, control, or assistance shall not relieve you of your indemnification obligations. And 3I. ClickBank may have its own counsel present at and participating in all proceedings or negotiations relating to a claim at ClickBank's own expense unless you fail or refuse to secure legal counsel to defend any claim in a timely manner, in which case you shall pay all expenses related to ClickBank's use of such counsel. B. In the event that ClickBank incurs costs, attorney fees, or other expenses responding to any complaint other than a claim in a connection with or in relation to your products or promotions, including copyright infringement complaints under the DMCA, ClickBank reserves the right, in its sole discretion, to recover such costs and expenses by deducting a reasonable, commensurate amount from any monies owed to you by ClickBank up to a maximum of $10,000 per event. In the event that ClickBank incurs any losses relating to your violation of ClickBank's email, text message, telemarketing policy as set forth in Section 6 above, ClickBank reserves the right, in its sole discretion, first, to recover such losses by deducting a reasonable, commensurate amount from any monies owed to you by ClickBank up to a maximum of $20,000 per event. You understand and agree that the remedies set forth above are not exhaustive and that ClickBank retains all right to indemnification described herein. You authorize ClickBank to make and release ClickBank from any liability in connection with any such deductions. 14. Limitation of liability. In no event shall any ClickBank party or its heirs, successors, and assigns be liable for any indirect, incidental, special, punitive, or consequential damages whatsoever arising out of, resulting from, or in connection with this agreement, and or any use of or inability to use the ClickBank services, B, personal injury, property damage, or losses of any kind resulting from your access to and or use of the ClickBank services. C. Unauthorized access to or use of any and all personal information and or financial information stored therein. D. Interruption or cessation of transmission to or from the ClickBank services. And or E. Bugs, viruses, Trojan horses, or the like, which may be transmitted to or through the ClickBank services, whether or not ClickBank is advised of the possibility of such damages. Notwithstanding anything herein to the contrary, the maximum cumulative and aggregate liability of ClickBank for all costs, losses, or damages from claims arising under or related in any way to this agreement, whether in contract, tort, or otherwise, shall not exceed an amount equal to the total amounts due and payable by ClickBank to you under this agreement for the month immediately preceding the date upon which such damages accrue. The limitation of liability herein is a fundamental element of the basis of the bargain and reflects a fair allocation of risk. The ClickBank services and any services or information offered through the ClickBank services will not be provided without such limitations, and you agree that the limitations of liability and disclaimers specified herein will survive and apply even if found to have failed of their essential purpose. Because some jurisdictions do not allow the exclusion or limitation of certain categories of damages, in such jurisdictions, you agree that the liability of ClickBank shall be limited to the fullest extent permitted by such jurisdiction. 15. Data processing. You agree to comply with all data protection laws and regulations, including the EU's Data Protection Regulation, the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. You agree not to market to persons subject to GDPR who have not consented to receive marketing communications. Persons subject to GDPR are entitled to demand that you take certain actions with respect to their data, including, without limitation, that you delete it, correct it, or restrict processing of it. If you receive a data request from a person subject to GDPR, or if ClickBank receives any such request with respect to data you are processing, you agree to honor the request within 30 days. You agree to implement appropriate systems and processes to comply with this requirement. If you receive any personal data from ClickBank or process personal data on ClickBank's behalf, you will 1. Implement appropriate technical and organizational measures to ensure the security of the data. 2. Only process personal data for purposes approved by ClickBank. 3. Cease processing such data upon request from ClickBank. 4. Transfer such data only for purposes authorized by law with prior notification to ClickBank and only pursuant to an appropriate sub-processing agreement. 5. Indemnify ClickBank for any claim, expense, demand, or cost related to your receipt or use of such data. And 6. Upon request, provide ClickBank with information sufficient to demonstrate your compliance with this section and allow ClickBank to audit your data practices if necessary in ClickBank's sole discretion. 16. No guarantee of validity. ClickBank does not endorse, approve, or certify any information provided on or through the ClickBank services, nor does it guarantee the accuracy, completeness, efficacy, timeless, or correct sequencing of such information. Information provided on or through the ClickBank services may or may not be current as of the date of your access, and ClickBank has no duty to update and maintain such information. Additionally, the information provided on or through the ClickBank services may be changed periodically without prior notice. All content provided on or through the ClickBank services is provided as is. Use of such information is voluntary, and reliance on it should only be undertaken after an independent review of its accuracy, completeness, efficacy, and timeliness. 17. No professional advice. ClickBank provides professional information, for example, financial or compliance, for informational purposes only, which should not be construed as legal or accounting advice. You should seek independent professional advice from a person who is licensed and or knowledgeable in the applicable area before acting upon any information, fact, or opinion provided on or through the ClickBank services. You understand that ClickBank employees, representatives, and or agents do not provide advice pursuant to the authority of professional certifications or licenses, and you will not treat information provided by our employees, representatives, and or agents as such. You further understand that by receiving information, facts, or opinions on or through the ClickBank services, you are not entering into a relationship with ClickBank or its employees, representatives, and or agents that entitles you to client privileges that may be associated with any professional certifications or licenses. 18. Disclaimer. You assume all risk and responsibility for your decision to use the ClickBank services. The ClickBank services and all related services are offered as is, and ClickBank disclaims any express or implied warranties, including, without limitation, any warranties of merchantability, fitness for a particular purpose, and non-infringement. Neither ClickBank nor its related parties and affiliates endorse or are responsible for the accuracy or reliability of any information, fact, or opinion provided on or through the ClickBank services. 19. General terms and conditions. Governing law. Dispute resolution. Attorney's fees. You agree that Idaho law will govern this agreement and that any action, suit, proceeding, or claim arising out of or related to this agreement must be brought exclusively in federal or state courts located in Boise, Idaho. You hereby submit to the in-person jurisdiction and venue of such courts and waive any objection based on inconvenient form. You agree to indemnify ClickBank for all of its reasonable attorney's fees and costs incurred as a result of any action, suit, proceeding, or claim brought by you or ClickBank in which ClickBank is found to be the prevailing party. You hereby irrevocably waive any and all right to trial by jury in any action, suit, proceeding, claim, or counterclaim arising under or in relation to this agreement. You and ClickBank agree that each may bring claims against the other only in your or its individual capacity and not as a plaintiff or class member in any purported class action or representative action. A. English is governing language. This agreement is in English, and all disputes between the parties shall be resolved in English. You understand and acknowledge that any foreign language services provided by ClickBank are for informational purposes only, and is your obligation to obtain independent legal advice at your own expense to ensure you understand the terms of this agreement. B. Our relationship. This agreement does not create any relationship of principal and agent, partners, joint venturers, employer-employee, fiduciary, or similar relationship between the parties. You are prohibited from making any promise, warranty, or representation on behalf of ClickBank or obligating ClickBank in any way. You may not represent to any person that you are the agent of ClickBank or are authorized to act on its behalf. C. Assignment. ClickBank may freely assign or transfer any or all of the rights and obligations described in this agreement. You may not assign this agreement or any of your rights and duties hereunder without the prior written consent of ClickBank. This agreement shall be binding upon and inure to the benefit of the parties hereto and the respected successors and assigns. D. Severability. If any provision of this agreement is determined by a court to be unenforceable or invalid, the validity of the remaining parts, terms, or provisions shall not be affected by that determination, and such court shall substitute a provision that is legal and enforceable and is as close to the intentions underlying the original provision as possible. E. Publicity. You may not issue or make any publicity release, including press releases and advertising or solicitation materials or other public statement relating to this agreement. 2I. Using ClickBank's name or referencing ClickBank's services. Or 3I. Suggesting or implying any endorsement by ClickBank of you and or any products without the prior written approval of ClickBank, which ClickBank may withhold in its sole discretion. You hereby authorize ClickBank to include your name, business name, and general information about your use of the ClickBank services in ClickBank's marketing and promotional materials. F. Entire agreement amendment. This agreement constitutes the complete and exclusive agreement between the parties relating to the subject matter hereof. It supersedes all prior proposals, understandings, and all other agreements, oral and written, between the parties relating to this subject matter. ClickBank reserves the right to amend this agreement at any time. When ClickBank amends this agreement, ClickBank shall make reasonable efforts to provide you with general, not specific, notice of such changes by posting a conspicuous announcement at https://www.clickbank.com link that such changes or amendments have occurred and identifying which particular provisions have changed. Such announcement shall be maintained for no less than 30 days following the effective date of such amendment. Your continued use of the ClickBank services following the posting of such amendment will signify and be deemed your assent to and acceptance of the revised agreement. You agree that you have the burden to review periodically https://www.clickbank.com link to inform yourself of any such changes. G. Waiver. The waiver or failure by ClickBank to exercise any right provided for herein will not be deemed a waiver of any further right hereunder. The rights and remedies of ClickBank set forth in this agreement are cumulative and are in addition to any rights or remedies ClickBank may otherwise have at law or equity, except with respect to any sole and exclusive remedies expressly provided for herein. H. Equitable actions. You acknowledge and agree that any breach or threatened breach of this agreement may cause immediate and irreparable harm to ClickBank, which will not be adequately compensated by monetary damages, and that ClickBank may seek injunctive relief, specific performance, and or other equitable relief as a remedy for any such breach or anticipated breach without the necessity of posting a bond or other security. Notwithstanding any other provision of this agreement, any such relief may be sought in the state or federal courts of the state of Idaho or any other court of competent jurisdiction anywhere in the world at ClickBank's sole discretion, and you hereby consent to the jurisdiction of any such court and waive any objection to venue laid therein. Any such relief shall be in addition to and not in lieu of any appropriate relief in the way of monetary damages. I. Force majeure. You nor ClickBank shall be responsible for delays or failures in performance resulting from acts of God, strikes, lockouts, riots, acts of war and terrorism, embargoes, boycotts, changes in governmental regulations, epidemics, fire, communication line failures, power failures, earthquakes, other disasters, or any other reason where failure to perform is beyond the control of and not caused by the non-performing party. J. Notices. Any notice, request, approval, authorization, consent, demand, or other communication required or permitted pursuant to this agreement shall be in writing and shall be deemed given on the earliest of I. Actual receipt, irrespective of the method of delivery. 2I. The time of transmission from ClickBank is sent via email as date stamped by ClickBank's systems. 3I. On the delivery day following dispatch, if sent by express mail or similar next day air carrier service. Or 4I. On the 6th day after mailing by registered or certified United States mail. Return receipt requested, postage prepaid, and addressed to the last address provided by a party. K. Headings/interpretation. The section headings are for convenience only and shall not control or affect the meaning or construction of any provision of this agreement. I, or L, H-I-J-K, yeah, L, survival. Sections 5, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19 shall survive termination of this agreement, except terms and conditions.